Hi, I'm George Nordhaus, and welcome to Monday Morning. Oh boy, we're talking about grit. What is grit? I used to think grit was, there used to be a magazine called Grit. I have to talk to Randy about that. But find, hire, and develop real producers. If anybody knows about who's going to hire real producers, it's Randy Schwantz, because as you probably know. Well, let me tell you a little bit about Randy. Let me show you the picture of him. There he is, speaking, which is not unusual for him. I've been working with him since 1992 in a number of ways. The wedge was the big thing. And the wedge was his concept that there's got to be something that we can come between us. We're going to wedge in between us and the present customer, the present carrier of the customer or something. And I think it kind of started that way. And then of course, it's gone on to all the books and other things that he's written. He has an agency growth system. We'll be talking about that. It's just an amazing the job that he's done, and I've been in his office there in outside Dallas, I think, and it's quite an interesting operation. But this one today, though, is going to be totally different. Randy, you tell me about it. We'll go from there.
Well, yeah. So we're gonna be talking about this thing called grit: how to find, hire, and develop real producers. And why is that so important? Well, you see the quote up here: the difference between where your agency is today and where we'll be 5 years from now is in direct proportion to your ability to develop your sales team.
Yeah.
So, George, when you look at somebody's sales team, you got your core producers. You can get so much out of them. And then if you don't add on new producers successfully, you can pretty much see the writing on the wall in terms of how much you're going to grow. So it's interesting that back in, 2007, 8, 9, whatever that little period was where we had that little debacle here in the United States of America.
Yes.
A lot of people quit hiring because they didn't feel like they could afford it. And now the industry's getting old, and there's just a dearth of new producers. So anyway, came out with a new book to help people through that process and get to thinking about it. You can see this other quote from a large California broker. It says, "We're not sure of much, but we're sure that any growth we're going to enjoy is going to come from the producers we need to hire."
Yeah, good.
There's a lot of people that need to hire producers. So I was watching a TEDx talk one time. A lady named Angela Duckworth was talking about this term called grit. And it's kind of a mindset. It's the type of person that finds a way just to get it done. And so when you look at what is grit, it's perseverance, it's ability to just keep blowing through, keep working it, which is really what you need in a great producer. You know, their passion for long-term goals, which is building a big book of business. They got to have zeal and persistence. You know, they got to have that motivation to keep it up. And let me see if I can snooze that thing. I mean, these things keep popping up, George. That's the cool thing about new computers.
Yeah, don't worry about it.
I can't make it.
You do it all the time. Don't worry about it. It happens in the best of what. Keep going. It happens to all of us all the time. Yeah.
The whole point is that grit is what we're really looking for, I feel. And so I just really wanted to, take a moment and just kind of start to break down some of the stuff about what is it. And really what today, pretty briefly, what are the 6 characteristics of a real producer? Well, before we talk about what are the 6 characteristics, I think somebody's got to ask, well, what is a real producer? And George, you've been around this industry for longer than I have. And you know that there's a lot of people sitting in seats. There's not really a lot of real producers. And what is real? Well, somebody that on a day-to-day basis is going to prospect, sell, and retain and grow huge books of business, in this case, $1 million book of business.
What are you suggesting? Are you suggesting a real producer has $1 million book of business? If he doesn't, he's not a real producer?
I'm suggesting a real producer on a day-to-day basis prospects, sells, and retains, and is consistently growing. That there's a lot of people that are account managers that sell a little bit, do a good job retaining their book, but they're not actively prospecting. And I'm also suggesting, George, that there's a lot of producers that have been hired over time that didn't make it because they didn't have grit. They didn't have that fortitude to go prospect, and because they didn't prospect, they didn't have anybody to sell to, and because they didn't sell, they didn't make it. So I think a real producer is somebody's got all 3 of those characteristics in spades, and they do it on a consistent basis.
Okay.
So then the question is, how do you spot a real producer? Well, I put the deal up here. It's easy to spot a real lion because a lion's got that big that mane. They got those eyes that are just pointing at you. They got that snout. That's a lion. For crying out loud, you can't mistake that that's a lion, can you?
No way.
Oh. No way. But when you sit there and think about, well, what is a real producer? How do you spot a real producer? We know how to spot a real lion. How do you spot a real producer? Is it that guy on the left that's holding his little white pad? Is it Mr. Enthusiastic in the middle with his thumb up looking all cool like Jim Carrey? Or is it Mr. Cool back there with his arms crossed leaning against his car? Like, who is it? And here's the problem, George, and you know this. I mean, through all the profiles you've done to help hire new producers, my role of helping hire new producers is that if you can't really spot or determine are they going to be a real producer, real being, they can prospect, sell, and retain and grow a huge book of business. If you can't spot that, there's a huge chance you're going to make a big mistake. And from the stats that I've seen, on average, about 52% of producers that get hired make it. In the best agencies, they say about 80%. In the worst agencies, they say about 20%, 1 out of 5.
Wow. God, I had no idea it was that low.
Oh, it's horrible. So a lot of money gets wasted. So my feeling is if you know how to spot a real producer or you know how to determine if you have a real producer, then you got the hands up on everybody. So in order to spot a real producer, you got to know what you're looking for. And so I've got 6 characteristics of what we believe a real producer is, and let's just talk through them, okay?
Sure.
So what's number 1? They're driven to obtain goals. And driven is the key word there. We go back to what we're talking about in that definition of grit, perseverance. They just won't stop. They've just got to get it. And George, I've probably trained 500 to 1,000, and I don't know what the real number is. I mean, I know easily 500.
Oh yeah.
Newer producers, as well as 6,000 or 7,000 core producers, and it's amazing to me how many new producers have been hired that you and I sit there and we look at him and we go, nice guy, but man, he's got no fire in the belly. No fire at all. It's like, what? How the hell did this guy get hired? And so one of the key characteristics is, man, they got to be driven to obtain goals. There's got to be something they want so much they're going to do whatever it takes to get it, right? So that's number 1. Number 2, they got to have the ability to deal with rejection. And this business is loaded with rejection. Let's just look at all the places you get rejected. Number 1, you got to make cold calls probably if you're brand new, right? So that's about 3% effectiveness rate, even for the good ones, honestly.
Oh yeah.
And then you go meet with the prospect, and then you get more rejection. And then you go to the underwriter, and you get more rejection. And then you got the incumbent kicking up your butt. That's more rejection. I mean, it's loaded with rejection. And if you don't have the ability as somebody that's in the process of hiring to try to determine can they deal with rejection, then you're about to get screwed as an agency owner. Screwed in the sense that you'll probably interview these guys, you'll like them, because nobody hires anybody that they don't like, right? I mean, they always like them.
Always, yeah.
Always like them. But if they don't have a way to determine can they deal with rejection, they're going to make a bad mistake because they'll hire a guy that they like. That guy or gal won't want a prospect. They'll hide out in their office. They'll hide out on the golf course. If they can't deal with the rejection, and then sooner or later they'll either get fired or the agency owner feels so sorry for them that they start to give them all the piece of crap call-in leads that come in.
Oh boy, you know what? That rejection thing has hurt me over all my years. I still have a problem with it. I have to tell you, when somebody, they won't return phone calls. I think, hey, wait, don't you know? I've been around a long time. Call me, man. I'm here. And I get rejected.
Yeah.
I come back downstairs. Sue says, "What's the matter?" I don't want to talk about it. So I have another martini.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, so whether it's have another martini, whether it's go work out, or whether it's just get pissed off and pick up the phone again, it's not that and see, here's number two. I just want everybody to understand. It's not that rejection doesn't bother you, but you look at the first three words there is the ability to deal with it. I just got rejected. God, it pisses me off.
Mm-hmm.
All right, screw it. I'm gonna go do another one. And they got that kind of fortitude. If they don't, then what they're gonna do is they're gonna feel that rejection. And look, I went through it also. Man, I got where, George, this is a true story. You know, when I first started this business, I wasn't making hardly any money. Nobody knew who I was. I had zero reputation. I had nothing going for me. Let's just, it's that pathetic. I had nothing going for me. And I remember I would pull up my computer. I'd pull up the name of an agency. I'd reach and get ready to dial it. And what I would see in my head would be a picture of a guy that looked like Kojak. You remember Kojak?
Oh, yeah.
Had the bald-headed guy, and he always had a stogie in his mouth. And then when he talked, he'd just kind of grunt.
Yeah.
And I had this feeling that when I pick up the phone to call somebody, I would see Kojak. He would go, what do you want, sort of deal. And then I would get this whole lousy feeling in my tummy, and I'd go find somebody else to call because that's how bad rejection bothered me. So I had to learn how to deal with it, you know, through some classes that I took, some psychology stuff that I understood. Anyway, bottom line is, if you don't find can they deal with rejection, you're about to have a problem. Number three, are they resilient? They don't quit. Why is that so important? I mean, even guys who have got $500,000 books of business have some bad years, right? And you see them sitting on the couch somewhere. I mean, they just lost, you know, 2 or 3 of their biggest clients got bought out by a major conglomerate that Marsh insured. And so now instead of staying with you, they go to Marsh. You know, you had this one account that you're working on that had 10, 20, 30, 40, 50,000 revenue in. The guy gave you a promise it was going to be yours and then backed out on it when the incumbent came in with the wine and cheese. I mean, all sorts of crap happens. And so you got to determine they're resilient. Number 4, are they good at relationships? They meet people well. That's kind of easy, but I'm gonna talk to you about this concept called evidence-based hiring in just a moment. To where when you look at all these things, we've got to run them through exercise to determine can they do this. Number 5 is smart. George, I'm going to ask you an honest question. Have you ever seen anybody with a big book of business that wasn't smart?
Not really. I don't think so. No.
I don't think so. I mean, it just doesn't exist. I mean, you got to be smart to figure out how to manage your life, manage your clients, manage your prospecting, manage your CSRs, manage the carriers, and write a big old huge book of business. You just got to be a smart person, and you got to learn the business quickly. So looking for that. Number 6, coachable, because if not coachable, they won't learn from their mistakes, right?
Right. Boy, these are tough. Some of them tough knowing about them. Well, how do you determine them?
Well, yeah. So I came up with this thing. I mean, you know, you lived in California how long, George?
40 years.
40 years. And so, you know, in Southern California, particularly down by San Diego, I mean, that's where a lot of the Navy SEALs do a lot of their training.
Oh, yeah.
And so you think about this for a moment with me. If you wanted to join the Navy SEALs, you wouldn't just have an interview and just take a psychological profile and they go, okay, you're in. What do? They put you out on the beach in cold water washing up on you, and they make you sit through that. They put you through sleep deprivation. They put you through hunger. They put you where you and your buddies are carrying around one of those big old rubber boats above your head. I mean, you're doing all these exercises to see if you've got grit, see if you've got the intestinal fortitude to make it happen. Let's try something different. George, you're George Steinbrenner, okay? Play like you're George Steinbrenner instead of George Nordhaus.
I like it.
He's still alive. You know?
I'd be a lot richer, but go ahead.
You would be a lot richer, but he's a nasty old guy. Remember, it doesn't matter.
He was awful.
So if I came to you and said, George, I want to hire this pitcher right here. You know, he used to play for the Red Sox, and he was really, really good. Here's his resume. And, you know, here was his strikeout ratio. Here's all that sort of stuff. And, you know, we can get him for $5 million. Now, you would probably say to me, Randy, I'm not going to get that $5 million until we find out, can he throw today? And then what you do is we'd march him out there on the mound, and we'd make him throw. We'd make him throw fastball and slider and knuckleball and curveball and all this sort of stuff. And then we'd take him into the PT guy, the physical therapy guy, and we'd make him bend and touch his toes and touch his knees and all this sort of stuff. And then we'd put him out there and we'd make him run the 40 and see how fast he is. And then we'd take him over to the doctor, and they do X-rays and MRIs on his shoulder and all that sort of stuff, because you want evidence that he can do all the things he said he can do. Am I right or wrong?
Oh, that's a good analogy.
So now when I look at this stuff, if an agency does not have an evidence-based hiring process, then can I tell you what they're going to do?
Mm-hmm. I got the idea.
Here's what they're going to do. They're going to bring in that new producer, and they're going to tell their story about the agency. They're going to ask the producer a few questions, probably not a lot, to be honest with you. They're going to do some sort of personality profile on them, and most of those profiles kind of say hire with reservations. And because they need somebody, they kind of overlook, what it says is wrong with this kid. And because they like them, they hire them. And they got no evidence that the kid is smart, that they're coachable, that they're resilient, that they can deal with rejection, that they're driven, that they can really do the business. And they're going to hire a problem, and over 50% of the time, that's what happens. That's what happens. And that's why when people don't have a process to really determine what a producer is all about, a new producer candidate, the chance they're going to make a mistake is really high, and all they got to do is look at the last 5 people they hired. Mm-hmm. That's the problem.
Mm-hmm. Good. I love this. You don't have any. You don't have any sympathy for these people, do you? There's no reason, huh? I guess. None.
No. I mean, hey George, if I took $75,000 of your money and gave you nothing back, would you have any sympathy for me?
None. I understand totally.
None. Yeah. I got one friend that says when they hire somebody, a mistake costs them about $250,000. I've got 2 people that say that, and I've got many more probably. That mistakes are really, really expensive. So anyway, grit, how to find, hire, and develop real producers. Real producers are people that prospect, sell, retain. There's certain characteristics you got to find out, and there's a whole systemic way of going about it so that you don't make mistakes, which is why I got a webinar coming up.
Oh, man. Yeah. Free? I didn't realize it was free. That's nice. That's very nice of you. Well, August the 3rd, I'm going to be there. That's great. Free. What's the $150 free bonus?
Well, for those who stick around till the end of the webinar, I'm gonna offer that to them. But that's going to be a combination of a copy of my book, Grit: How to Find, Hire, and Develop Producers, at about 90% off, and a free hiring profile we use called Craft Metrics that they can use to kind of test and bring. Now you're starting to bring a combination of science and art together to be able to make better hiring decisions. So that's coming up on August 3rd. If they want to register for it, they just go to thewedge.net/grit.
I love it. Well, it's wonderful. Well, now what about the book then that comes? There was a book. I mean, there is a book that you wrote. You gave it to me, and I appreciate it. What about that? How do they get that? Or
so, well, when they register and they stick to the end, that's when I'll give them opportunity to get that book at a 90% discount.
Oh, that's beautiful. Boy, I tell you what, that book is really something. I'm just telling people right now that because it goes into depth on each of these points, and I kept reading. I got into it, and I couldn't get out of it. So you've done a hell of a job there, I have to tell you, Randy. Well, listen, we could talk about this forever, and I know you have, and you're a great speaker, and you get it across to people. So let me suggest to people that they sign up for this thing. It's free, and boy, I'm telling you, it's got to be just like this. It's like this 15 minutes or something that we spend here, or 20. It's going to be, what is it going to be, 3 hours, really? No. How long?
No.
It'll
be an hour-long webinar. It'll start 9 o'clock Pacific time and 12 o'clock Eastern time.
I just wasn't reading it right. Yep. Well, listen, Randy, thank you. People are going to hear a lot more from you, and I really appreciate you opening the door for this, because this is I think everybody hiring should have this in an agency. No question about it. Do you have any last thoughts before we hang up for today?
Well, I guess the last thought is this. sometimes it's, there's this phrase that sometimes people won't pay to do it right the first time, so they have to pay to do it a second time.
Right.
And when it comes to hiring new producers, it's really expensive to have to pay to do it right the second time because you didn't do it right the first time.
Amen.
And so if you're in the business, if you're in the area where, over the next 12, 24, 36 months, you know that you need to be hiring new producers, then don't make a mistake on the front end and regret it and then try to figure it out later. This is going to be an opportunity to really get good at it on the front end. I'm going to tell you this one story, George. True. I mean, everything I tell is true, but sometimes you prep.
Sometimes it's more true. Honestly, yeah, I know. Go ahead.
Well, yeah. So where this came up from was that there's an agency that I work with in Fort Worth, Texas. Started in 1995 working with these guys, and they were making some, we'll just call them hiring mistakes. I asked if I could get involved in the hiring part. I didn't know anything more about it than anybody else, but I was willing to try. And so I got involved in the interviewing process, and it started to develop. I really didn't know what I was going to ask. I really didn't know what I was looking for. But over time, I got better at it and got better at it and got better at it. Well, when you roll the clock forward from 1995 to 2005, that's 10 years later, I was involved in hiring 34 people for this firm,
wow,
of which 29 made it.
Wow.
And those 29 that made it built an aggregate book of business of $17.5 million of commission.
Of commission?
Annualized commission.
Oh.
The group that we hired, George, would have been in the top 100 agencies in North America. That's how successful it was. And so when we get into this thing, what we're doing is we're breaking down, I reverse engineered all of that for my client base. Right now, I work with 95 agencies on my iWin agency growth system.
Right.
One of the biggest problems most of those clients have is making great hiring decisions. And then if they can't do that, then they're kind of stuck. So that's what I'm going to be going through in this webinar. It's real stuff, man. I mean, it's going to be real.
I know you, and it'll always be real stuff. So let's get people to sign up for it. It's a heck of a good deal. I'll be there listening if I'm allowed, and I'll probably be stealing good ideas from you, as I have for 25 years. And listen, I want to thank you again for everything. And for the rest of you, show this stuff around, get it going, talk about it, believe in it, and then I'll see you again next Monday morning.